Greetings YouTube, it is Farmer Ross here at Misty Moon Farms, and today I'm going to be going over the science of watering. So if you have a garden, you have a farm, watering it is an essential aspect. And if you're just doing a small area, of course you can use a hose and manually do it, and that can take up a lot of time. And if you have a big area, it can really be a pain, especially in the summers when you're having to water every single day. Spending 30 minutes watering by hand is not something most people want to do. So we're going to be going over the two ways of watering that I use here in the greenhouse. One are called impact rotors. So those are the mechanisms that most people use for watering their yards. You can see I have them stationed here. They're the sprinklers that go like that, and they have different ranges on them. So you can, if you just have like a garden hose, you could hook them straight up to that on a tripod type thing and move them around your yard. You can build them more permanent like the ones I have here, and they're hooked up to a timer. And the pros of those are they're good for direct seeding. So when I'm seeding lettuce or carrots or beets or something where I'm directly putting the seeds in the ground and not using transplants, then I'm going to use the impact rotors because that's going to get full coverage of an area. The cons of it though are it's the full range of the area, so you're going to be watering your pathways, you're going to be watering in between the bays, you're going to be watering areas outside of where you want to grow your plants. This encourages weeds to be able to grow. And if you have any sizable area that you're growing in, weed management is essential because you do not want to spend hours weeding. It is not fun. So one of the best ways to do that is understanding your watering system so that you get water where you want to and not where you don't want to. So the impact rotors are really bad at isolating where you're putting your water. It's going to use more water because it's spreading it over such a larger surface, and it's going to encourage the weeds to grow because you're getting everything. But in the beginning, when you're starting to seed stuff, it's very beneficial because you get that full coverage, so all the little seeds in your soil are going to be able to germinate. They're also a bit easier to install, so if you're newer to farming, it's easier to go with the overhead system. You can hook it directly up to a hose and you can move it around as you need to. Very low cost. So there's a lot of benefits to it, especially if you're new or you're direct seeding. You can adjust the sprays, you can adjust the angles of them and everything. So if you are going to use them, make sure that they're only spraying where you want. So these ones on the outside here, these little guys sticking up about a foot and a half, I go through regularly and make sure that they're only watering what I want. So they're still getting more coverage than I'd really like, or I can do with drip tape, but it's gonna be better than if I didn't do that. So that is impact rotors and kind of the benefits of them. And then the second thing we got here, which I have a big spool of, is drip tape. Now I discovered this stuff probably too late in my career. I discovered it after a few years, and it was a total game changer. So if you're having to pay for your water, and you're, especially if you're on your municipal water supply or something, drip tape is going to save you a lot in watering costs because it gets the water right where it's going. So you can see I have one laid out here for the Swiss chard, right? I haven't been using it, but it goes down the row like that in a long spool. And what it does is it has these little perforated holes in it. I'm sure you can't see them on the camera, but it has little holes. On this one, it's every 6 inches. You can buy them with different spacing. So you can buy 4-inch hole spacing, 8-inch hole spacing, 12-inch hole spacing, like that. I would probably, I'm not saying, unless you were doing like melons or something with drip tape, I would stick with something small, 4, 6, 8 inches. It's all about the same. If you were gonna do your lettuce or Swiss chard or beets or something that's planted a lot closer together than, a foot, I might go with the smallest option you can because that's going to get better coverage with it. And also spreading them out. So the water comes through here and it'll slowly drip through the holes. And that's gonna slowly saturate the soil with water, but it's gonna get it right where you want it. And we use 30-inch beds, love 30-inch beds. John Martin Portier promotes that, so I got on his kick and it's worked out really well for us. So that's what we do. And like for these, I would do 1 drip tape for each row, like that. And then I'll have 1 on the other side, like this. Because these, since they're just dripping from this, they're only gonna get about a foot, maybe a little bit more of width to them, and then it's gonna go down. You're not gonna saturate a big area because you're only gonna have like a gallon a minute come out of each of these holes. So it's not a lot of water and you have to run it for longer, but it really targets it. So we use these stakes. These are really, really cheap. They're just metal stakes. And then I'll go through every, I don't know, maybe every 10 feet or so and stake it down like that. Because if you don't do that, it's not good, because when the water pressure comes through and fills these, it'll kind of move like a snake. So you need to stake it down so that it stays where you want it to go. Ideally, you're getting them as close to the roots as possible. And then if you're doing like something like a long-term plant, something that's gonna be there for a long time, I always recommend my weed barrier fabric here. Yeah? So we'll do a whole episode on weed barrier fabric, but it's just a woven poly. People have their own opinions about poly, but it's what we got here. And it has holes, so each hole would be a plant, a tomato plant for instance, and then the drip tape is gonna be underneath that. So the weeds, when you do it that way with the drip tape, with the drip tape underneath, it's going to be really, really targeted watering, and you're not going to have any weed problems.
Can I get water?
Sure.
Okay.
And then the end pieces here, this is what you use to plug them up. So these are the connectors here. All of the drip tapes hook up to PVC hookups like this on ours, and you would hook up your plumbing directly in there. And then the drip tapes go into your fittings like this. And then you screw them on, so no glue or anything. And then I can control which ones I want. This is all to the same spigot, and I can control them if they're on or off. And then the end piece goes on like this. And there you go, drip tape. So that can be a little bit more expensive, and you need to manage your water pressure. Depending on how far you're going, you're gonna want very pressurized watering coming through here so that it can pump up your whole drip tape. You can look at the manufacturing specs to find out exactly what PSI you want going through your drip tape. But that is another point to consider that when I was setting up another farm for the first time, I had to learn about. But if you just look at the manufacturing specs for your drip tape, it'll tell you what kind of PSI you want going through there. What else do we have here? I think that's about it. So that is our short video on watering. Things to consider: impactor rotors versus drip tape, and when you would use each one, and kind of how to set them up. Maybe we'll do more in-depth videos on specifics of drip tape. This was pretty, basics of what you need to know, but if there are more comments or questions that you have, leave them in the comments or message me, and I'll see if I need to make another video clarifying anything. So also another thing you can do is use the impactors at the beginning. So if you're direct seeding something like lettuce or carrots, you can use the impact rotors to get them started for the first 2 weeks. And then once you know that they're all germinating and sprouting up, you can lay in drip tape and get it more targeted. So that's another good strategy if you're not doing transplants, but with direct sowing, You can do impactors for the first few weeks and then switch to drip tape. That's a really awesome idea. So, all right, sending you many blessings. Ciao.